Most people assume the most popular antidepressants are the best. That assumption quietly wrecks quality of life for a lot of people. On paper, they look fine. In real life, they flatten your motivation, kill your sex life, or trap you with side effects that outlast the benefit. These are the 5 antidepressants that I avoid prescribing because I've watched the side effects linger long after the benefits fade, if the benefits show up at all. If you've ever thought, I'm not sure this is working, but I definitely don't feel like myself, pay very close attention to number 2, and especially number 1. And who am I to question the meds that are prescribed millions of times a year? My name is Dr. Sulman Aziz Mirza, triple board certified in adult psychiatry, child and adolescent psychiatry, and addiction medicine. And I've learned the hard way that popular doesn't mean powerful when quality of life is on the line. Lexapro gets handed out like a starter pack. Clean SSRI, easy on side effects, good for anxiety is what they say. Celexa, the parent drug, rides on that same reputation. But here's what I see in real life. A steady stream of people who've already tried Lexapro and felt nothing. 8 weeks in, no real mood lift, just nausea, brain fog, and emotional flatness. What it's supposed to do is simple. Raise serotonin, calm anxiety, lift mood. What often happens instead is underwhelm, apathy, sexual dysfunction, minimal energy shift, that dull, I'm here but not fully present feeling that quietly makes life smaller. Your life should feel bigger. If your world gets smaller, that's not a win. Celexa has an extra catch. At higher doses, it can prolong the QT interval in your heart, meaning there's a max dose ceiling. If it's not helping at a modest dose, you don't have much room to push higher without nudging heart rhythm risk. Lexapro doesn't carry the same formal heart warnings, but it carries the same core problem. A lot of people just don't feel meaningfully better. Here's the bigger lesson. When everyone's on the same med, we assume it must be good. In medicine, that often means it's convenient, not superior. Patients often come to me having already tried Lexapro because it was the last of the classical antidepressants, and their primary care doctor prescribed it for them because that's what they've been told to do. You know, because newest equals best, right? But like all these meds, taking medication alone isn't going to make you feel better. There are times I'll still use it, if someone clearly did well on it before, or they have a strong family history of doing well on them. Otherwise, I usually reach for something else first. Most often, that's sertraline, Zoloft, or fluoxetine, Prozac. Sertraline has a broader track record and tends to be more robust for anxiety and obsessive symptoms. Fluoxetine's long half-life makes missed doses and transitions easier. Up next is a medication that sounds great on paper, promises cognitive benefits, but it routinely punishes your gut and your wallet. Trintellix is marketed as different. Multimodal, cognitive benefits, clearer thinking, plus a mood lift. On paper, it sounds great. In real life, I see 2 problems show up again and again: cost and gastrointestinal punishment. And paying a premium to feel nauseated is the losing strategy. What it's supposed to do is treat depression and help with cognitive fog by hitting multiple serotonin receptors. What often happens instead is this. Mood might improve a little, but nausea, constipation, or stomach pain make it hard to stay on the medication long enough for that benefit to matter. I've watched people try to push through the first few weeks, hoping the side effects will fade. Some make it, but a lot don't. Because when your everyday starts with nausea, your day gets smaller fast. I hear this story a lot from patients who have tried this. My mood actually improved on Trintellix, but every morning I was nauseated, late for work, and anxious about leaving the house. I stopped, even though it was helping, because I couldn't live like that. That's not failure. That's a reasonable decision. There are situations where I'll still use Trintellix, usually later in the sequence, after multiple SSRI or SNRI trials, and when cost isn't a barrier and we've got a plan for the GI side effects. Slow titration, taking it with food, sometimes short-term anti-nausea support. Some people do fine. But I don't make it a go-to. you don't need to pay a premium to roll the dice on nausea. Most of the time, I'll try something else first. Bupropion is a common alternative. It tends to help energy and focus, has minimal sexual side effects, and doesn't come with a consistent nausea pattern. Ultimately, you need a medication that works for your mood and your wallet. And more often than not, that's not Trintellix. Buspar sounds like the safest option in the room. Non-sedating, non-addictive, not an SSRI, not a benzo. On paper, it looks almost harmless, and that's the problem. Buspar is supposed to help generalize anxiety by working on serotonin receptors without the baggage of sedation or dependence. In theory, it's a clean solution. In real life, I see one main outcome over and over again. People feel underwhelmed. They take it exactly as prescribed. They wait, they're patient, and weeks later, the anxiety is still there. Maybe slightly dulled, but very much alive. Not gone, not controlled, just quieter enough to be confusing. And here's how most patients usually describe it. I think it's doing something, but I'm not sure what. That uncertainty matters, because if a medication doesn't produce a clear, noticeable improvement, adherence drops fast. Buspar also has a timing problem. It doesn't work right away, and it doesn't work as needed. You have to take it consistently, often 2 or 3 times a day, and wait weeks to get to a working dose for a payoff that, if it comes at all, is subtle. And for someone with real impairing anxiety, subtle often isn't enough. And oh yeah, if you have to take something multiple times a day, the likelihood of missing doses goes up. And Buspar doesn't work if you don't take it. Here's the bigger lesson. A medication can be safe and still be ineffective. And something that's effective can quietly cost you time. Months of waiting, hoping, and second guessing whether you should feel better by now. Up next is a medication that definitely works, but comes with one of the roughest exits in psychiatry. Effexor and its cousin Prestige often feel great at first. People pick them up and think, oh, this is doing something. Energy improves, anxiety eases, mood lifts faster than expected. And that's the hook. The problem isn't starting these medications. The problem is trying to leave them. Effexor has a short half-life, which means blood levels drop quickly. And when levels drop fast, your nervous system notices. Hard. Miss a dose, take it late, try to taper too quickly, that's when people meet the infamous discontinuation syndrome. Brain zaps, dizziness, nausea, vertigo, that strange electric underwater feeling that's impossible to explain unless you've lived it. I hear this all the time. If I'm even a few hours late, I feel like my brain is short-circuiting. That's not anxiety coming back, that's pharmacology. What Effexor is supposed to do is block serotonin and norepinephrine reuptake, lifting mood and adding some drive. And to be fair, it often works. But the cost is a razor-thin margin for error. You're setting alarms, you're checking blood pressure, especially at higher doses when the norepinephrine kicks in harder. You're hoping a stomach bug or missed refill doesn't derail your week. Here's the key lesson. The shorter the half-life, the harsher the exit. This isn't mysterious, it's predictable. And with venlafaxine, even extended release versions don't fully protect you from inner dose drops. Now, Prestige. It often shows up after a pharmacogenomic report lights it up in the green zone. And this is where people fall into what I call the gene test trap. A green box doesn't guarantee a good outcome. Because while venlafaxine looks cleaner on paper, real-world results are mixed. If you follow the report instead of the person sitting right in front of you, you can miss better options. I watch people feel boxed in by these meds, not because they don't work, but because stopping them feels worse than staying on them. There are definitely times that I'll use Effexor, not so much Prestige, but I don't start people here. Most of the time I'll reach for duloxetine or Cymbalta instead. It's still an SNRI, but with a longer half-life and smoother exits. And if pain is part of the picture, neuropathic or musculoskeletal, it pulls double duty. Up next is my least favorite medication of all time. Any guesses before we get there? Paxil is the clearest example of a medication that feels calming up front and punishing later. Early on, people often say the same thing. I feel less anxious, I feel steadier, I finally feel calm. And then time passes. Paxil also has a short half-life and strong anticholinergic effects, meaning your nervous system feels every dip, and your body pays the price over time. By month 2 or month 3, a different picture usually shows up. Weight creeps up, libido disappears, motivation thins out, emotional range narrows. People aren't panicking anymore, but they're not really living either. And if you miss a dose or try to taper too fast, that's when Paxil earns its reputation. Dizziness, nausea, irritability, brain zaps, that buzzing electrical feeling in your head while the room tilts. People don't call it withdrawal hell from drama. They call it that because it's brutal and often completely unexpected. Here's the key problem. Paxil doesn't just cause side effects while you're on it, it traps you with them when you try to leave. This isn't a rare reaction, it's predictable pharmacology. Short half-life means fast drops. Fast drops mean your nervous system panics. And stopping abruptly, it's a terrible idea. Even tapering can be slow and miserable. Many people need microsteps, liquid formulations, or fluoxetine Prozac bridge just to get off safely. And that process can take months. There are only 2 cases where Paxil actually makes sense. The first is premature ejaculation, where delayed orgasm, a sexual side effect, is the actual goal. The other is in some cases of vasomotor symptoms in menopause. But for depression or anxiety, starting from scratch, almost never. If someone is thriving on Paxil, truly thriving, I don't rock the boat. But I definitely don't start people here, because there are cleaner options that don't make leaving the medication the hardest part of the treatment. Most of the time I choose almost anything else first. Sertraline, fluoxetine, duloxetine, these have longer half-lives, easier exits, fewer metabolic and sexual penalties for many people. Here's the bottom line. The right antidepressant isn't just the one you can live on, it's the one you can live off without losing yourself in the process. And Paxil fails that test more often than any other medication on this list. At the end of the day, the right antidepressant isn't the one that looks best on paper. It's the one you can live well on and live off without losing yourself in the process. And I know that some of you watching this are doing fantastic on some of these medications. And that's great. Please do not change your regimen that's working because I don't use these meds. Now, I want to hear from you. What's actually helping you? What didn't help you? And what do you think belongs or doesn't belong on this worst 5 list? Drop your experience in the comments. I read them all. If this list challenged how you think about medications, the next video is the other half of the conversation. My top 5 antidepressants and how I actually think about first-line picks in real life. I'm working on my 2026 list and that should be coming soon enough. Until next time, be safe and be well.